Alright, after school here, I want to show you my Chieftain Frostblink Ignite character for 3.26, Path of Exile 1. So I'll play this early in the league. It's not going to be my first character, but it will be one of the first characters. I think it's a super fun character to play, but it's not a character that can do everything. So, got to manage your expectations on that. So first thing though, let me show you what the character looks like in game, because really that's what this character is all about. It's how it plays. Just a white tier 16 map. And basically just cross-plink around, cause ignites, and Hinekora explosions. Not a ton of damage, so on tougher monsters like that, you have to do a little bit of extra work.
I cannot do this yet.
Alright, got pretty good Ignite Proliferation, thanks to Barracks Respite. Especially in a map like this, Ignites will travel down the hallways and just ignite everything. There's another way to do Ignite and or the Proliferation. I'll show you how that works in the next map. See if I can get down to the boss, and you'll see some of the limitations of this character there. But that is pretty satisfying. Not the fastest character, but it's not slow, and it's kind of interactive in a strange sort of... Oh, is that the boss? Okay, well, that was an anticlimactic boss there. And that's one of the beauties of it, is when you get the ignite and you get the explosion, basically just nukes everything. Normally with the boss, you'd put it debuffs on it, and then use a penance mark from the Hateful Accuser ring to have it cause spawn phantasms around it. You can ignite and explode those phantasms, which transfers onto the boss, and that's how you do real boss damage. Since there were already some ads around that boss that blew up, it just blew the boss up all in one go pretty much, and get to observe what was happening there. Alright, so as I said, two different ways of doing the proliferation of the ignites. Barrett's Respite's really nice in terms of sort of endless potential chaining of those ignites. You can also use the glove mod, though, that causes your ignites to spread. Has a slightly different mechanic, and it can be better or worse depending on the situation. Barracks has a very large radius, so that's really nice. Works really well for covering a lot of area, a lot of monsters, goes around corners, everything like that. And this glove mod, I'll just swap it in so you can see it's exact same gem setup, my Arcanist brand debuffs, and I'll take the ring off, and we'll run another white map just to compare it back to back. And what you'll see is when there's an ignite, it leaves a red circle on the ground, and any mob that walks in that red circle, yeah, you can see all the red circles around. any mob that walks into one of those circles is going to be ignited. So instead of the endless sort of chaining potential, it's got repetitive ignite potential. So if you're in an enclosed area like in a ritual, or I guess an ultimatum, although I haven't done an ultimatum in a long time, or monsters spawning from a strongbox, this method of proliferation might actually be better, but it just depends. The cooldown is one issue with Frostblink. If you blink into packs and out of packs, it reduces the cooldown. But if you miss, or you're just too impatient with it, you'll have to wait till the cooldown period expires. Alright, so I think I got my Penance mark on there. Debuffs. And it's actually not bad. It's just a white map, no added life or anything like that, but still, it's not too bad.
Oh.
It's got kind of a fun interactive aspect to it. You actually do have to take an action to attack, and it has some timing. So it sort of becomes a surprisingly engaging playstyle for something like this. Can't really think of another skill that's quite like it. Okay, so that's what the glove mod looks like. It puts down those red circles that ignite the mobs instead of the ignites just chaining with the ring. So it's up to you. This mod allows you to free up this ring slot. We're using so many uniques that just to get your stats and your resistances, you may want to have that free ring slot. It's up to you. And then if you just really want to completely skip bosses, then you don't even need the Hateful Accuser. You could just use a rare there as well. Up to you. Okay. Mana can be a problem with this build, so I've gone with this helm, which gives us Eldritch Battery. Means that we're spending Energy Shield instead of mana, and it basically just solves the problem for us. It also increases our mana reservation efficiency, so we can get all of our auras in. Without this helm, we'd need a mana flask, and you'd want this Enduring prefix to make sure that you've got mana all the time. It works okay, but you're constantly pressing the mana button basically to make the build work. So it's just a different play style, and I personally find it kind of annoying. I don't mind using this helm. In 3.26 we will not have this +1 socketed gems that got nerfed slightly. So it's slightly lower values on our auras, but I'm not even maxed out on my auras right now anyways. So the other thing you need to do without this helm is to change the passive tree a little bit. You need some more mana reservation efficiency, so one way you could do it, take these two nodes, the Deep Thoughts, and then the Mastery for 12% increased mana reservation. And that'll allow you to get all your auras in without the helm. Of course, there's a lot of other ways of doing mana reservation efficiency, so if you know about those and you want to pursue those options, then of course, it's up to you. The items we have here, well, I'll start with a key item here, which is this chest piece. Bronze Leaf, however you say that. +5 levels to movement skill gems. That's pretty huge. We're really building our damage with plus levels to gems, so that's exactly what we need to make it work. And then 70% increased damage with movement skills. The rolls comes up to 100. You really want to get closer to 100. These are not expensive items. These are seldom used, so if people bother to sell them on trade, you can buy them inexpensively. So look for good rolls on that. It makes a difference. Along with that, of course, you want to get some kind of ignite proliferation. Not entirely necessary, but it really does make it nice. It's sort of like the design of the build, the style of the build, more than anything, rather than a strict necessity. But still, it's so easy to get, and it really is great for clear, so you'd want to do it, I think. Also, helpful to the build, although not necessary, Legacy of Fury causes Scorch, which is going to increase our damage. We also get some burning, and yeah, so that's just all good stuff. But you don't absolutely necessarily have to have this. The shield's generally very inexpensive, and it's a very good defensive shield, so I don't know if there are better defensive options in this slot, but this is what I went with. For Amulet, again, you don't necessarily have to have this amulet. You could have plus to gem levels. You could have a replica Dragonflight with the +3 to Frostblink gems. That would probably be really, actually, could be more damage than this, I'm not sure. But we get covered with Ash, with Zorf's Heart, and that increases fire damage. So, pretty decent amulet, although there are other options which are not far off. I don't know how expensive this will be in the upcoming league. It just sort of depends on what builds are popular. This is just plus gem levels, I may have already mentioned, so it could also be a scepter with fire damage over time multiplier, something like that, increased fire damage, etc. Those are all good options and probably wouldn't be too much different than this. So the gear is kind of sort of oddly specific, but yet not all super crucial. We need to get a lot of dexterity. The chest piece needs 145, and we're on the left side of the tree where there's hardly any dexterity, so you're gonna need to get some high rolls with this. You can craft these items yourself with Essences of Sorrow. Highest level, it gives you up to 58 dexterity, which is pretty good. That's how I crafted these items here. Not that they're anything special at all. I just needed the dexterity for sure. It's hard to get high dexterity, and so the essence is kind of the way to go with this, a simple way to go with this. All I'm looking for is life and fire resistance after that. This can be much, much better. I just ran out of good essences. This could be this is okay, because we want a high life roll, we got that. We need high dexterity, the essence guaranteed that, and we'd like fire resistance, and we have enough. We could have more, and that would be a little bit better, but it's definitely good enough. So it's really not hard to equip this character. As far as flasks, Ruby Flask reduces fire damage. I had this in because I had Righteous Fire going previously, so probably a better flask to use than this. Maybe a Jade Flask. Haste of Hate, I don't know what that, I think they changed that, I don't know what it does these days. Anyways, this flask slot could be changed if need be. Quartz, you want phasing. You get into groups of mobs fairly easily, and you'd like phasing because you'd like to be able to just walk out if necessary without getting body blocked. You can get phasing in other ways as well. Watcher's Eye, I believe. It's probably much more expensive, but it's a full-time phasing instead of this only when the flask effect is up. But still, seems like good enough for now. Granite Flask, increased armor, defensive, a Quicksilver for movement. I didn't even roll this one. So, not highly critical. I was running Righteous Fire before, That's why I have some extra regen on my tree for this particular character. To make that work, I needed this Immortal Flesh with this flat life regen on it. Not sure if it's really worth it. It does increase damage, but where it's most helpful is where you Frostblinked into a pack, like a blue pack, and they didn't quite die. And you're standing in the middle of the pack now, and until you can Frostblink again, and even though your Ignite's burning down, you're not necessarily doing all that much damage to them. And so this Righteous Fire can be a little bit helpful in that situation. But for the cost of the belt slot, didn't seem to be worth it to me. Up to you. Another thing you could do to help out is to get a synthesized item that has % increased dexterity, and then if you roll that with, anywhere you're getting dexterity from will be increased by that percentage, which makes it a bit easier to get your stat requirements in, because we really do need a lot of dexterity, especially for being on the left side of the tree. So I'll just show you the tree for this character. I'm only level 84, so haven't even fully leveled up. I have some of this regen here and this life node left over from the Righteous Fire in my path of building. I think I unspec'd all of this. I've just respec'd this character so many times in its development that just got tired of respecking. So this isn't exactly optimum, but this is the tree I followed. We've got the regen from overcapped fire resistance. We got some maximum elemental resistances. Corrupted blood can't be inflicted on you. Reduced cost of skills and increased life. We've got some block. Glancing blows, which doubles our block chance. Pretty decent. Elemental damage, ignite, life, ignite, resistances, life, damage, regen. Okay, this is a little bit weird if you haven't seen it before, but I'm taking minion damage. And you say, why in the world would you take minion damage? And it's because of spiritual aid. And this minion damage becomes applied to us, and it's generic damage. It amplifies everything on a character. So it amplifies damage on Frostblink, but also our Hemet Korra explosion. Not that they necessarily need to scale that, it already does a lot of damage, but still, more is more, so why not? And it's right there. His points are right in our path, basically no matter how we build this character, so might as well take it. Got some innervation efficiency here, reservation efficiency, got ignite, got some fire damage over time, life. We've got element or overload. We're not. It's more damage. Critical strikes aren't that part of the build, not a crit build. Damage over time. Got life and resistances. And then we've got going for our whole fire wheel here. I've got one more point there, so that finished that off. 2 nodes have ignite. Fire damage over time. And these are just penetrations, really helpful, and then just general fire damage. Okay. I'll show you the path building in a minute, but we also use Avatar of Fire. So we're using a Cold to Fire gem in our links with Frostblink, so half of cold converted to fire with that gem, and then the other 50% here with Avatar of Fire, so we're 100% fire. And that's basically what our tree looks like. In my test character, we just gone over to Path of Building here. And you'll see the tree is slightly different. That regen over here and life I didn't take. I think the pathing is a little better. I'm not taking glancing blows because I'm actually not sure which way is going to turn out to be better with glancing blows or not. I don't think I have block capped the way it is. So that may be something you want to try and see how it feels for you. Get the ignite, got life, damage, regen. These two maybe not necessary, but it's 2 points I could save for something else. AoE, got life, elemental damage, ignite, some penetration here, extra endurance charge, and that goes along with our amulet anointment. Discipline of the unyielding gives us power charge on kill. That's improving our physical defense. Pick the whole minion wheel. Got mana efficiency. Got life. Got spell block. Got ignite. Fire damage over time. Elemental overload. Damage over time. Jewel. Minion damage, since again, we're taking spiritual aid, just 1 point for 20% increased damage. We'll take it. Fire wheel, and I have fire exposure. You apply extra minus 5%. So we'll take a look at our debuffs in just a minute. For the jewel, we have kind of an interesting one here. Modifiers to chance to avoid being shock apply to elemental ailments. I've got the wrong gem in there. Well, you can ignore that. Okay. Skills. Frostblink. That cold to fire, converting 50% of our cold damage, which is what Frostblink does, of course, to fire. And then the avatar of fire on the tree converts the other half. These are all basically enhancing our ignite damage here. Okay, so that's the 6 link in our chest. Okay, we've got Tempest Shield, which gives us a bunch of spell block and makes us immune to shock, but we don't need that because we've got Purity of Elements. Malevolence, damage over time. Purity of Elements is resists, and it's also ailment immunity, which is huge. So it'd be hard in a build like this to get ailment immunity another way, because we're kind of limited with the items we have, and we need to get all this ignite chance on the tree. It's just such good utility, it's hard not to use it. And then we have our debuffs. So we cast Arcanist Brand, which is a brand that attaches to the monsters, and then it casts the link to spells. We'll start with Flammability. That just reduces fire resistance. That's always going to increase damage no matter what. We've got Wave of Conviction, which is going to apply exposure, because the highest damage that it does is fire. It's going to create fire exposure, which reduces resistance again. Flame Surge, which is pretty interesting. I've never used it before, but what it does is create burning ground based on the ignite that's the monster's affected by. So for a boss, this allows you to basically enhance the ignite that it's currently burning with. So again, I've never used this before, but I believe it works, and it's pretty nice additional damage, especially if you get Hinakora Explosion near a boss. So I think this is, if it is working correctly, this is a pretty good enhancement to your damage. Okay, and that's what the character looks like. Items, I just have the Dark Seer in here, but you could do a lot of different kinds of items here. Something with fire damage over time multiplier, damage over time multiplier, plus gem levels. In this league with the recombinators, we should probably be able to make some +2 one-handed weapons without too much difficulty. I'm not exactly not that experienced with it, but I believe it shouldn't be too difficult to be making these items. And even if you don't choose to make them, other people will make them. And when they're ready to upgrade, they'll put them on trade, and you'll be able to buy them. And they won't be cheap, but they'll definitely be available, and they may actually be big buff to this particular build. So anyways, you got a few different options here for the weapon. It's really not critical. The Dawnbreaker shield seems to me about the best defensive shield unique that I could find. There may be other rare options which work better for you. I think if you get your block chance high enough and you got a shield with life gain on block, that might actually be a better way to go. But for a good starting shield, this is, once people start acquiring them, they don't sell for much. They're not usually very expensive, so hopefully that'll be true this league as well. The helm will not have +1 on it for this upcoming league, but it still has the mana reservation efficiency which we need, and it's got Eldritch Battery, which is really helpful. Eliminates your mana problems. You've got the chest piece, which we talked about, very cheap because hardly anyone uses it. I just have some random gloves in here. Legacy of Fury boots. These can be expensive, so we'll have to see what they look like. I've got an alternative that you can use, or you can just use rare boots until you can't afford them, or skip them, whatever you choose to do. Thor's Heart, again, might be expensive, but again, there are probably a number of different amulets that you can use, uniques even, that are probably not so different in damage. And people will be recombinating and getting, +2 gem level amulets that may be just what you need, and almost as good or just as good, I'm not sure. You've got Barracks Respite, sometimes expensive depending on what builds are popular for the league, so you can always go with the glove mod, which will never be that expensive because you craft it yourself from Eldritch Embers, which are relatively easy to get, not very expensive. Hateful Accuser, generally not expensive, and this is going to help you with bosses, so if you want to skip bosses, then you could even skip this item. Probably in the beginning of the league you're going to need to kill map bosses at least once, so you're probably going to want this, because otherwise killing map bosses can be, especially if they don't have any ads, is going to be time consuming at least. I still have the Immortal Flesh belt on here from when I was using Righteous Fire, but this can be any old rare. You're going to want to get something with a lot of dexterity on it. I've got basically whatever flasks you want, but you'd want a flask with phasing, quartz, granite flask for armor, quicksilver for movement, and an anti-bleed flask. I got a couple gem sockets here. Oh, there we go. And basically what we want to increase our maximum fire resist. So depending on how expensive these are, if you can get one that looks like this, fire damage multiplier over time and +1 or +2 maximum fire resistance, it may not be inexpensive because there are going to be so many people running Righteous Fire. It's such a popular build, especially early in the league. This may not be within our price range. You can get a +1 fire resistance and then some other useful stat. Maybe not both on the same Joel. We'll just have to see how that goes. If you take it out, it's not that big of a deal. Not that much damage. We're at 1.5 million damage here with Frostblink, and it goes down to 1.47. So, you know, you can't have these 1.5 versus 1.3. I don't even know if you're going to notice that. So it's nice to have, not necessary. Just to see my configuration. Yeah, there's no configuration. I didn't check any boxes. I'm not presenting an unrealistic path of building here at all. You could check some of these actually, because some of these would potentially apply to you. But it, you know, even when I've played around with this, it doesn't change the number. It can make the numbers bigger in path of building, but it doesn't change the build. So I just left it alone. Alright, that's our build. Alright, I'll add these links here to the guide. This will be linked in the description of this video, so you can check them out yourself, and I'll update them over time. They aren't in their final form. As I said, it's a build idea, not a final guide. And just so you know, there is a Frostblink Ignite Elementalist build out there. I have the original guide linked here. I don't know if he's going to be updating his guide or not. He makes really good guides, and I know a lot of people tried this. I think 2 leagues ago it came out. I can't remember exactly. I think people can make up to like 5 or 7 million DPS with it, so definitely stronger than my build here, but it just does different things. Now their build uses Elementalists, and that has the node Shaper of Flames. So the Elementalist ascendancy here, Shaper of Flames, is what they rely on to get their ignite, because normally Frostblink does cold damage, while if you are an Elementalist, you can spec into this in your ascendancy, and then everything ignites, including your cold damage. And this is the 3.25 tree, 25% more damage with ignites. So it's losing that. It's been changed, and it's been changed. There's now a line that adds defensive quality, which you're trading damage for defense. So I think in general people think it's a more good than bad change, but you will lose 25% of your damage with the Elementalist build. Still pretty okay, but should be aware of that. Okay, so for leveling this, I think you should follow Hawks's guide here for Righteous Fire. I mean, this is just the best in the business, right? I think I have it open here. Absolutely epic guide. Every question you could possibly have from start to finish for this type of character. So it's an easy way to start a Chieftain. It tells you absolutely everything you could possibly need to know. The super support, very, very impressive to me what he's done with this. So I've linked to his guide and his YouTube channel. So that's my recommendation for leveling a Chieftain, basically no matter what you want to do with it. It's just so good. It's not what I did though, of course. Why would I do what makes sense? I did it my way, which, so I have a witch leveling guide that uses Absolution. And so I thought, well, actually let me turn off the ocean here. Okay. Witch Absolution guide. And it's really strong. So on the Chieftain, we start in a different area, so it takes a little bit longer to get into the minion damage that we need. Although actually not that much. Mainly getting the gems that make it as good as it can be happen at Act 3. you get to a zone called the library. There's a quest there that allows you to access all the gems that all the character classes have access to up to that point in the game. And once you get there, you basically unlock the full power of Absolution. It's great. It really is a good way to get to the campaign, fun way to get to the campaign. And what's kind of cool about it is with either of these approaches to leveling, you can add in Frostblink and you can start adding links to it, and you can watch the power of Frostblink grow basically as you're leveling. And then at some point, you're going to realize that Frostblink has become your main damage. So it isn't like you're leveling with one type of character and then you completely respec it into something different. And now it's a different playstyle, it's a different everything. It doesn't change as quickly. So I like that. I like watching the character evolve over time. And with either of these approaches, Pox more than the Absolution one, it really, you can do that. So we reviewed these key items here in the guide in case you want to look at it. A couple last things to consider. For the anointment, I used Disciple of the Unyielding. I may have shown that to you already. Down at the bottom of the tree. And it allows you to get endurance charges on kill, which help your physical resistance. Violet, Crimson, and Opalescence are the oils. So Opalescent oils might be, they're not super cheap. Not that expensive, but not cheap. So you may have to save up to be able to afford this anointment, or if you're running Blight, well then you're going to find these yourself without too much trouble. Another way you could go with the anointment, though, is Fleetfoot. Have it open. It reduces the cooldown of travel skills, and so that's one of the problems with Frostblink is it has a long cooldown. So to mitigate that to some extent, you can use this anointment. I tried this out, and honestly, I didn't really feel much of a difference. As long as you're Frostblinking into and out of packs of mobs, the cooldown isn't really that much of an issue. You might like it, so you can try it and see how you feel. But if you notice on Frostblink here, we have cooldown recovery for the number of monsters and the rarity of the monsters. So again, if you're just Frostblinking in the area with no mobs at all, then you've got a longer cooldown than when you're actually actively using it to fight. So I didn't really find the cooldown reduction from Fleetfoot to be all that noticeable. More noticeable is Stampede. So if you didn't have Legacy of Fury, depending on what builds are popular, these may or may not be expensive or not. It's got much more cooldown recovery, up to 80%. Getting 80% would probably be expensive, but you can easily get 50%. And that is more noticeable. So this is a consideration that you may want to try and see how it feels to you, especially if you can't afford the Legacy of Fury boots that I'd normally use in the build. One other item just to be aware of, it's the only thing that's kind of similar to the body armor that we use, and it's because it's got socketed travel skills deal 80% more damage. It's kind of unusual for items to have mods like these, so I just thought I would make note of this in case you can think of some way that you could use this. I'm not sure if it's viable at all because you'd have a 4-link and you're losing that +5 levels to your Frostblink. So it's quite a lot less damage, but it is kind of unique because it has that mod, which not many items do. Along with that, I'm not sure if I mentioned, for the amulet, you could use a replica Dragonflight with the +3 to Frostblink gems. That may well actually be better than this amulet that I have selected. So might be something you want to check out. It might not be expensive because, again, not many people are going to be running Frostblink, I don't think. Okay, that's the guide. I'll update this, the links to the Path of Buildings, and everything you need in this written guide, which will be linked in the description. I'll update it as I'm learning more and developing the character with whatever might be helpful with it. So good luck.